Hello and welcome to another SolidWorks how-to video. So in this video, I'm going to go through how to actually create a drawing for an assembly. In previous videos, I talked about doing it for parts. Fairly simple, throw the views on there and get some dimensions in, and we've got all our information. But the assembly has some extra little tips and tricks and some extra features we can add to our drawings to make the thing really easily understood. So I've already got an assembly, our good buddy, the plate with bolts. I have already created an exploded view in assembly drawings. An exploded view is incredibly helpful because we're actually going to use that in our drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and create a drawing from part/assembly. I've got my advanced to sort of remember the novice versus advanced selection because I have a drawing template. In previous videos, I mentioned how to create those, how to modify, get some things the way you like them. So I'm going to accept that. And I'm going to select my title block. Okay. And remember, again, in a previous video, we talked about how to get this title block sort of automated. So some of this stuff just plain comes in. I'm going to go ahead and start by just dragging a top view in and just sort of do our standard 3 views for this assembly and an isometric view. I like to do the isometric view. Now, the alignment of the isometric view doesn't matter so much. So I'm going to drop that in there. And what I do like to do, whether this is a part or an assembly, is if possible, I like to make this isometric view 1-to-1. Now, that doesn't always work if it's a large part or an incredibly tiny part, because remember, we're working on 11 by 17 paper here. So a 1-to-1, if this was a 2-foot wide part, we couldn't create it at a 1-to-1 scale. In this case, this thing's only like 2.5 inches long, something like that. So I'm going to, over on the left, with my isometric view selected, I'm going to click Use Custom Scale. I'm going to go over here to the drop down and select 1-to-1. Now that is a 1-to-1 view. Now, the problem is, if we look down at my title block, the scale for the whole sheet is 2-to-1. And we want to be clear about this being 1-to-1. So I, right away, before doing anything else, I'm going to come up here to the annotation tab. I'm going to add a note. I'm going to drop it right underneath here. And I'm going to say scale 1-to-1. Click out so that this is labeled now. And I've got my scale. So for this drawing, this is actually complete. I don't need anything else on here. Now I could add some things, but on here I don't. The dimensions and things are actually going to come from the individual part drawings. So this is just, to show how the assembly goes together. And we may need more views than this for more complicated assemblies, but we want to be very clear on how this assembly goes together. That's the entire purpose of assembly drawings, more so than the dimensions. So toward that clarity, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to the bottom where I've got sheet 1 and I have a new sheet button. And I'm going to create a new sheet. I now have a blank sheet number 2. I'm going to go ahead up here and come to my drawing. I want to insert a model view. I want it to be of the plate assembly, so that's fine. And I'm going to double click that and select isometric right away. So I've got my isometric view. I'm going to drop that right in the center. Now, I want to explode this view. I want to show it as the exploded view that I created. I can do that when I create the view, show an exploded or break state. Click that, and then I can drag it around to sort of, fit it on my page. The other option, if I didn't do that, say I dropped it in and forgot that this little checkbox over here on the left exists, I can accept this, and I can always right-click later and modify it and get right back into this. It's also in the right-click menu under, let's see. On the fly, now I have to even remember. Show an exploded state. So it sort of automatically checks this box for us. So we can toggle it on and off. I want this to be exploded. The first page sort of shows the assembly altogether. This page is exclusively for showing it exploded. So that looks good to me. Now, the next step sort of on this exploded view is I want a bill of materials. One of the good things about SolidWorks is it actually keeps track of which parts we use and how many. And we can sort of automatically generate a bill of materials table for this drawing. So to do that, I'm going to start out by coming up here to my file, insert, annotations, and auto balloon. And notice I now have balloons with numbers in them, sort of pointing. Whoop, I clicked out. I'm going to go do that again. And actually, it may also be on the ribbon. There we go. We also have a ribbon option, annotation, auto balloon. And now, because I don't have this selected, I can select my view. It puts those in there. Now, accept this rather than hitting escape like I did. And I've got balloons in here that I can now move around. I can drag them, move them around, but I now have the parts actually labeled. So I can drag them around, and eventually SolidWorks will kind of try to snap them together so that these are now vertically aligned just for, aesthetic purposes. I can also, if I want everything, say, on this side, that doesn't look great because now I've got a line crossing, but I can always move the arrow ahead as well to anything. And as long as I snap it, notice the line here is turning orange. The diameter turns. I can snap it anywhere I want, and it'll maintain that reference to that part. And then I can align it with these other two. And the key with these balloons, we want them in there. But the key with these balloons is that we don't want them intruding on the part. Like for instance, this one, this arrow may be unclear what it's pointing to, or this line may interfere and create, confusion about what's going on. Is that line part of the part? So we can go ahead and drag this out to say here, somewhere where I've got it there. That's better. Somewhere where I've got a line or a curve or something that's outside the part on the outer sort of silhouette, if you will, so that it doesn't interfere. So I've got my balloons. Next, up here on my list is, it does exist under annotations. Annotations, tables, I'm so used to going to file, insert. We can do that. File, insert. I want a table, and under table is bill of materials. Or right here on the annotations ribbon, I can also click bill of materials. It gives me all sorts of options. Same part as separate items. Right now, this is so simple. We really only need to accept those options. And see, the table there is now attached to my mouse. It sort of drags to my title block, my outer border of the title block, for a snap. So I can either snap it, on top of the title block or in the upper corner. I tend to prefer the upper corner. A lot of companies prefer down here. So I can go ahead and drop that right in there just with a click. And now I have a labeled exploded view with a bill of materials. I can also modify this table. We'll save that for another video. I can modify this table to show me exactly what I want. But at least at this phase, I could also start typing. Like, for instance, this without what I like to do is I like to modify this table, one, for layout. Two, we can pull these descriptions automatically from the title of the part. Remember in a previous video, we talked about adding part properties to automatically populate our title block. So we can automatically pull in some of these properties for our bill of materials as well. If we wanted a material column, for instance, to automatically populate that sort of thing. So for now, though, I'm going to not automate this. We'll save that, so I've got some content to create in the future. But I do know one thing about this flathead capsker, and I know what that is. So I am going to enter and just start. So let's see. Changes to the BOM will be inherited. Is linked to a property. Which property are we linked to? Must be a property that I did not use in that model. I thought I did. So what I can do is I can right click and I should be able to open. I need to open the assembly and then go into the part. So open the part, open the part. File properties to see those sort of automatically pulled in properties. We've got subject, we've got title, custom. Description is its own property, I bet. Yep. So outside of title, I may go back and change my part template later. So I'm going to go ahead and enter that here. Quarter, I know it's a 1/4 by 3/8 flat head cap screw. Okay, and I will save it. Control S to save. I can close. I can close. And now my description's updated with that actual description property. And I type 2/8 instead of 3/8. That's great. Master class in fractions, right? But this is now, at least for this assembly, a complete drawing set. Now I could, if I wanted to, we know how to add sheets now with the little new sheet button. I could add the sheets for the individual parts. I'm not really nuts about that. Just because every time I change a part, then I have to change this, and technically, then do I rev up the assembly drawing, even though the part only changed? It's a lot of things. So I like to leave my assembly, I mean, and use as many sheets as I need. And we'll get into in later videos also about configurations and things and how to do sort of step-by-step assembly prints, which is a fairly simple thing to do. And we'll use more sheets for that, absolutely. But I like to keep the assemblies in one drawing file and the parts in their each unique drawing file, so that there's not sort of overlap and confusion about when do things rev up and when do we log the change and things like that. So hopefully that was helpful. I want to thank you for joining me for another SolidWorks how-to video, and I hope to see you back for future videos.